Hey there! Welcome to my first video on knife making. I've been making knives for a little bit. I decided to make this one for the first time because it's a special knife. And I think some people might enjoy watching how I build this. So let me show you a little bit. This is a custom order. It is for my client. Is going to be wearing this as an everyday carry. He's going to be wearing it all around. It is a big EDC, but client works in security, so you know it's okay for him to have a bigger EDC. It is 9-inch blade. The blade itself is 5-inch, and the handle is going to be 4. I'm going to do some file work here on the spine. You can see I'm going to put in a dovetail inlay with some spacer. The materials that were chosen, first, the steel itself is going to be Magna Cut. Best of the best steel, you know, it's super tough. It stays sharp for a long time and it's very corrosion resistant. I'm going to do a practice run on some 52-100 as well. Still going to be a great knife. As for the handle material, it's going to be some pearl kernite and some buffalo horn for the black element, which takes a very good glossy finish. And then we have this nice mosaic pin that was custom ordered, made out of carbon fiber with black resin, and it is a rose pattern in there. I don't know if you can see properly, but yeah, nice rose pattern in stainless steel, so it won't scratch either. The first step was to draw this knife. Along with the client, we chatted back and forth to see what he wanted, and so we're gonna go for a swedge here. We're gonna put some bluing on this part here. It's gonna make a nice contrast. We're going for like a tuxedo finish, so something that's gonna look very nice, very clean. And then I'm gonna put a mirror polish on the edge and the swedge, and I'll put a palm swell here. You can see the profile with the file work. And then the Magna Cut, I'm gonna heat treat it to 63 HRC with the heat treatment and then the cryogenic treatment. What else? This knife is going to be in a full taper, so it's going to be thicker at the front and then thinner at the back to balance everything. I'm going to do both a Kydex sheath and a leather sheath for a scout carry, so it can be horizontal. And that's about it. First step will be to cut this out, and then I'll lay it out on the metal. All right, and then the first thing I do after it's cut is just grab it and see if it fits properly. You know, I've done a couple knives yet, but since this is a custom order, I always like to see if it fits well, and it's really good. You see here, like your pinky really gets in that grip, and then your index gets locked here, so it feels really good in the hand. And you can also have like a reverse grip, and it feels really great. So happy with this one. I'm gonna keep it as is. All right, so next step is to lay out the pattern onto the steel. I already applied some layout fluid on my billet. I will put my pattern on top of it and then use some very powerful magnets. And once it's on there, I usually have a knife scribe with a carbide tip, but it is currently somewhere not found. So I'm just going to use a small screwdriver tip that's also pretty hard and just go around it. Yeah. All right, so now that our layout is scratched, what we are gonna do, first thing, before we go to the bandsaw or anything, we're gonna make those holes, and most importantly, because sometimes I forget that and then it's a pain to fix, put that ricasso in. So we're just gonna drill a small hole there. It's gonna make that it's a lot easier after that to just file or put the saw in. If you don't put it, and then after you wanna do something nice, it's a lot more work. All right, super important tool, caliper. So we're using this mosaic pin that we got custom made. It should be 5/16, and it is. So that's great. We're gonna drill the hole for that. And then our lanyard hole, 3/8. So we're gonna drill a 3/8 hole for that. Got an automatic center punch here. Those guys are pretty handy. You just lay them where you want and just press. And a couple of times, and you got your center punch. All right, so now time to punch the holes. I have a variable speed drill press here, so I run it at the lowest possible speed. I am out of cutting fluid, so I'm just gonna go slowly. I don't want to heat up the metal and harden it. Yeah, that's it. And then in between each hole, it creates a little bit of a burr at the back, so I'm gonna run it through my belt grinder on the flat plat end just to remove that little burr here. Just because I'm too lazy to deburr it, remove this drill bit, put the new one in between each. Because if you don't deburr, your surface is not going to be flat anymore, so your holes are not going to be flat. That's it, just a little touch to make this hole smooth here. All right, so now that our main holes are made, we are gonna put 2 more holes here. There's 2 reasons for that. First, it's gonna make the handle a bit lighter, so it's gonna be a more balanced blade. And the second one is that it's gonna allow the epoxy, when we put the scales on, to go from one side to the other, so it's gonna make a stronger bond. So, when I said a minute ago to not forget to punch a hole for the ricasso, I almost forgot, so I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna, again, use my automatic center punch and make a small hole. All right, now that our holes are made, we are ready to get on the first rough grind. I'm gonna try to do it with the portable bandsaw here. Again, we're working with metal, especially with stainless. You wanna run it at the lowest speed possible so it doesn't harden. MagnaCut is pretty hard to cut, so let's see if this works. If it doesn't, we're just gonna go on the belt grinder. All right, so I'm here now. It took me about 20 minutes on this portable bandsaw. It would have taken me about the same time on the belt grinder. It's just that I wanna make sure I keep this one, the MagnaCut, cold, because I'm gonna do some file work on it, and I really don't want to overheat it because it hardens pretty easily. And yeah, so now we're gonna do the rest on the belt grinder. All right, so now that we need to get closer to the rough shaping, I'm gonna run my belt grinder on the horizontal mode, and then on a contact wheel I use a 36 grit. This is the Norton Razor Star belt. I've tried all the high-end ceramic belts. I find the Razor Star is the best one. Lasts longer and stays sharp longer. I'm using here, one you see here has a hole in there. However, using this configuration, I only touch like one portion of the belt, so it wears it out pretty fast, but you can adjust the level to how high or low the belt is. So that's how I do it. All right, so now before we go on to the small wheels to do those round corners here, I'm gonna go up into finer belts. I usually don't do that before the heat treatment. However, since we're gonna do some file work, we're gonna want to make sure that the spine here is almost ready to just like touch up, and yeah, so that we put the file work and then it's already nice. All right, right, so here we see there's no old scratch mark from a 36 grit, so it looks nice. So now we can go to the small wheel attachment and then start grinding to get all those grooves here and the curves. All right, so we got our blade blank. Usually what I do is once the blank is done, I go to the heat treatment and then I do the taper. However, since we're going to do some file work, we need to do the taper before, then the file work, then the heat treatment. Why do I put a taper on my blades? A full tapered tang and a full tapered blade is because first, it's a big blade, so it would be quite heavy. It helped reduce a bit of weight. Also, it adds, like, visually it's quite appealing. You see, like, it just adds some more craftsmanship. It just looks nicer and fancier. So yeah, and also it makes the whole blade more balanced. So because the handle usually is heavy, so it would bring it backward heavy, and then it makes it just more balanced. All right, so now onto the surface grinder. The first step is going to be to surface grind it flat, because if you start your taper and you're not flat, your taper is not going to be right. So start flat and then put a taper on it. All right, so now time for the taper. The thickness of the steel and magnet cut is 7/32, and I want to get the back, the thinnest part, at 1/8 of an inch thick. So from experience, guesstimates, there is a calculation, just a triangle rule of 3 to do, but I just used this thickness gauge and I found that this one works the charm for this thickness, so that's what I'm gonna do. And there's a trick here for surface grinding a taper. You have to go slowly. By slowly, I mean do fast passes, but not put a lot of pressure. Because if you put too much pressure, then you'll end up rounding the edge of your knife of the very back here, and that's gonna leave a gap when you glue your scales, and it's gonna be pretty ugly. So take your time, go a step by step, just a fraction of an inch by a fraction of an inch, and it'll turn out great. All right, so that was pretty spot on. We still have our 7/32 at the front, and at the back it is flush on 1/8. I don't know if you can see here, but pretty stoked with that. Cool. So now that the taper is done, we are finally good to go for the file work. And the reason why I took it to such high belt grit is that in the event where I do a really nice job of my plunge lines and on the belt grinder, so that I can save some time on the hand sanding on this black part here, because that technically would be untouched, but that rarely happens. But I'm just hoping that one day that time I took to get the high grit belt will finally pay off.